Well, I've made it up to the top of Vancouver Island. Not a huge achievement by any stretch. Many people have done it before. And you see this is quite a tired old sign, but I'm up here into Port Hardy. And as it says on there, publicity where the highway ends, adventure begins. And of course I'm booked on a ferry. I have to go check in about 15 minutes to go up to Prince Rupert. It's going to be, it does have one stop on the way, but 17 hours and 45 minutes. So I thought I'd do a little video taking off on the ferry, and then I'll do another little one coming in. But I just wanted to stop at this kind of welcome to Port Hardy. It's a nice town. I actually know Port Hardy fairly well. They have a big wind project about 60 kilometers away, and this particular one was damaged, so they put it up here as kind of a welcome to town, which I really love. But some of the other communities around, which I've mentioned, I really love this Ceballos. And on one of my earlier tours that I was giving, I was talking about the Spanish presence up here. That's why you see names like Quadra. Well, this became a gold rush town, but it was named in 1792. The Spaniards were sailing up from the viceroyalties of Peru and Mexico, and they wanted to find out how far south the Russians had come. They then almost had a war with the British, and eventually a deal was signed called the Nootka Treaty, and in the end the land was basically ceded to the British. Telegraph Cove, this is all about whale watching these days, but it was a telegraph station. But around back, there's some really neat communities in this area. But that's Swantula. This was a utopian village set up by Finns well over 100 years ago now. And it still exists. I wouldn't say it's utopian, but it's interesting. Yeah, Port McNeill, and then Alert Bay, which really is just a full-on First Nations community. So the whole area is just so fascinating, and lots to explore. But it's a long way from everything. So, you know, we're way up here. And there's one other community. I just passed the turnoff where I could have turned off to Port Alice as well. So yeah, that's just a little introduction, and then I'll show you what it's like sailing out in this fine weather, and then tomorrow morning sailing into what will probably be rainy Prince Rupert. But there's the van sitting there. So I'll go check in for my ferry and get going. So I'm down in Bear Cove at the Bear Cove Terminal. And there's the ferry, the Northern Adventure. Just to give you a sense though, so it's nearly an 18-hour ferry. But it did cost me, for the van and myself, but no cabin or anything, no food, about $577. So that's a bit shocking. Check-in's very long, but they balance the ship out. There in the distance, by the way, is also a Coast Guard ship. Kind of fun. And I did, maybe it just blinked up in the video, I'm not sure, but a seal just popped his head out of the water. And then little Port Hardy's down there in the distance. I've spent a couple of nights here over the years. It's a really lovely town. It's fun to go kayaking, although it's a windy day, so it might be a bit rough. Who knows? But I'll give you a little tour as we're sailing away. And then I'm going to find some hidden spots. Sorry, I'm just watching an eagle spinning around in the distance. He's spinning around, he was circling around and obviously descending in on something. Don't know if you're able to see the eagle or not, but I'm really looking forward to this. We'll ride up to Prince Rupert, and I expect the video tomorrow morning will probably be a little cloudy and rainy. Best guess up there. See some clouds in the distance. Anyway, I will catch up soon once I'm on board. Just a quick view from inside the car deck here. Smaller ferry than the big ones come over from Vancouver, but of course we're covering just a huge distance, nearly 500 kilometers. To drive around from Prince Rupert out to here would take over 1,000 miles, 600 kilometers. So people have to drive in and turn around. So some of these big vehicles, it's a huge effort. And so there's my van, a few up there. So fun to see, but leaving clearly at least an hour late now. But oh well, they have to balance everything out, and then we'll travel up to the Inside Passage. Well, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. hour and a half late, which I've only been on this ferry a couple of times in my life, but it seems to always run late. I think the main part is just getting the balance right of all the vehicles on board. But this is the longest journey that BC Ferries does. So we're going up, I think, 274 nautical miles. I had to Google that. 1.8 kilometers to the nautical mile. And so it's a fair distance. And it's the true inside passage. The cruise ships can't do it anymore. It's just too narrow. So it's quite fun to see. I'm on the back of the ship, and there's a somewhat tattered Canadian flag back there because, of course, ports and water all fall under federal jurisdiction. There we are, powering away. Just take you for a very little quick walk around as we're leaving Port Hardy in the very north part of Vancouver Island. The ship is nice. It's nice and clean. It wasn't nearly as busy as I expected it to be. Let's just take a little wander up here. It'll get windy and noisy. But I do want to share with you leaving the port and the harbor. So we're going to call it at a place called Bellacoola. And then all the way up to Prince Rupert. There is little Port Hardy up here. Now this is lumber country, so tons of lumber industry around the whole area. Some beautiful high mountains on the way up here. It flattens out a little bit. And literally thousands and thousands of islands that we'll be winding through. There's all sorts of gorgeous area, but it's awfully noisy. So we'll see how rough the crossing is going up here. This is the ferry. Hear him over there, everyone. Hi. So, I'll bring us all into Prince Rupert in the morning. All the very best. Just one more view up to the front of all the islands. Don't know if anyone can hear me, but that's where we're headed to wind our way up through the inside passage. It's really a beautiful time to head out. So I'll try and do my best to stay awake for sunset tonight. If I'll stay awake, I'm going to be sleeping on the floor. Just so you know, the cost of this ride with my van is nearly $600, and that's without a cabin or food. So, you know, it's not a cheap thing, but it's up to one of the most remote places in the world. So, pretty special place to go. All right, I'll catch up with everyone soon. View up to the front of all the islands. Don't know if anyone can hear me, but that's where we're headed to wind our way up through the inside passage. And it's really a beautiful time to head out. So I'll try and do my best to stay awake for sunset tonight. If I'll stay awake, I'm going to be sleeping on the floor. Just so you know, the cost of this ride with my van is nearly $600, and that's without a cabin or food. So, you know, it's not a cheap thing, but it's up to one of the most remote places in the world, so pretty special place to go. All right, I'll catch up with everyone soon. So carrying on with our northern adventure, see some of the mountains at the top of Vancouver Island. Just some touches of snow out there. Some islands here. Out there, whether that's salmon or cherry clouds, perhaps. But it is just, it's just continuously all the way around. So hopefully I'll see some green light as well. Almost for sure, it's just how long it's taking. have to do some incredibly narrow passages. Here we are. Here I've come over to the other side. I guess the north side. Looking out towards other islands, of course, and then mainland British Columbia. Look at this huge. I'm holding my hat now so it doesn't blow off. We have so many narrow passages the way over here. It's pretty amazing to see, and there is glacial ice over on the coast there. So it's a wonderful, healthy, diverse ecosystem. So I think I'm going to get a bite to eat now, maybe so then have a bit of a rest for a few hours. I'll absolutely bring everyone into Prince Rupert in the morning, but boy, it's time to put on the jacket. So this is going to happen throughout this video. I don't even have my headphones in for the gimbal. There are actually whales out there, I think humpbacks. And again, I just don't think I'll be able to pick it up. But I keep seeing the spray. And people have all come out to deck to see them. Obviously a real honor to see them. There's humpback whales, grey whales, and then orcas, of course, killer whales, which are not technically whales, but we're not here to split those differences. I'm not sure if in the video, larger screen, you might have caught the spray, but it's a real treat to see. But it's very windy. I've moved to having a jacket, and I've taken my hat off so I don't lose it in the ocean. A nice, calm ride along here. At least the ship is calm. So we're coming up on about 9 o'clock at night here. And we've left the top of Vancouver Island. In fact, let's come back this way. See the very tip of Vancouver Island in the distance there. And of course, this is one section where you get some reasonable rollers. They're ebbing and flowing out here. That's part of the fun. There it is. Well, evening sunset. I've moved back into at least a jacket out here. It's starting to get dark, and I'm going to try and tuck down and get a little sleep. And get up early when the sun rises. And enjoy the long, long run into Rupert. And there's some clouds building up, so it may well be rainy in the morning. We'll see. Alright, it'll be hours for me, but seconds for you. And we'll see you soon. It's closed at 10 p.m. here. Can't be too far from Pelican, I wouldn't think. Have a look at that evening silhouette. It's still a bit windy, but of course the ship is traveling at, well, honestly, whatever speed it's traveling. But it's definitely slowed down to get up to the narrow passages here. So I think I might put my head down on my backpack and lay down on the floor, feel the ocean for a little while, and go to sleep in the morning. But I'll tell you, this is just pretty spectacular. So well up into the inside passage now, traveling up the coast of northern BC. Well, it is 12:30 in the morning, or evening, however one wants to say it, and we have just arrived, somewhat late indeed, but to Bella Bella on Campbell Island. Now, this is home to the Heltsu First Nation, and somewhere around 1,100 people living out here. There was one once a cannery. It's pretty dark, so we're going to be able to see a great deal. But this is at the head of the canal that leads all the way up to Bella Coola, which I think I said earlier, but called into Bella Bella. It's lovely and warm. And I have been sleeping intermittently on the floor inside, but I thought I would come and stretch my legs and have a little peek at the port here. So shame it's well, it's sort of fun to be up in the dark, but that's as much of Bella Bella as we're gonna see on this fine evening. So yeah, this is our one stop. See what time we make it to Rupert. Sometime, I guess, today now. Very much like this, in fact. Look at these valleys, big, deep glacial valleys, coastal glacial valleys. There's a gorgeous waterfall now just running out of this valley up there. You see the rock up on the top where there's still a bit of snow. That would have been glacial ice very recently from the look of it. Just recently receded. So they're certainly feeling climate change up here too, which is what's affecting the salmon populations. Here we are. Just cruising along, so to speak. The inside passage. We're just coming up on 8 a.m. and it's just warm enough that I'm sitting out back just enjoying this environment. Gave up on the idea of sleep, but I was able to get coffee. But this is the lumber industry in action. All those trees have been cleared out there, and I'm more than happy to do a long talk about that at some point. Lumber is sustainable, it's renewable, lots of upsides, but there's old growth forests that really most people, most scientists, and crustaceans and so forth feel need to be protected. There's an awful lot of merit to that. And it's also the processing of the lumber that's very important. Also seen some fishing boats out this morning. Really we're in halibut country, and given there's a moratorium on salmon, it's definitely not that, but I did see a large sea lion throw a fish up and out of the water. I didn't manage to get the camera out in time for that. The tide's quite low. You can see why this is a sea kayaker's paradise as well, though. Just spectacular. Still a few hours to go. This is the environment. The clouds are gradually building up, so I'm expecting I'll get some rain when I make my way into Prince Rupert. Yeah, there's a little fishing boat. Sure, they're maybe going out for halibut. Oh, I did see one sea otter as well, floating on its back. So, I think it's probably 12 degrees Celsius out here. Nice temperature. Very, very quiet ferry. I guess it's all on pandemic control. I saw it being sold out. Probably about a third of people disembarked last night at Bella Bella. Hopefully we'll find some whales, but I have no control over that. Anyway, carry on along and watch for bears on the shorelines as well. We've just come across the channel ever so slightly. Looking now west onto mainland British Columbia. Not necessarily, though a lot of these can still be islands. Huge inlets. To get a sense of the size of the ship, this is one of the smaller ferries. This one, as what I'm reading while I'm on it, generally goes over to Haida Gwaii. Haida Gwaii, you might know of as Queen Charlotte Straits, will emerge out to before getting into Rupert. Obviously being used on this route now, but I can just feel it navigating towards it. And that's obviously it's just navigating the channel. It's pretty spectacular out here. Lots of bird life around. More and more logs floating about, which is just indicative that there's been quite a lot of lumber activity going on through here. You just have a look down in the water. Just a tiny bit of wind all of a sudden. It's just been perfectly calm, as you probably saw from the earlier clips. freight, large pieces like that can actually be a bit of a concern for boats, of course, for ships. I just cast around. The tide is reasonably low if you just look at the shoreline. I'm just looking up into a tree there. Fairly sure there's an eagle straight across from me right now. Let's try and scan in for a second. On top of it, it's just a white hen. Eagle out there. Of course, when I get up to Rupert, if you were to go by water from there, the next stop would be Ketchikan, Alaska, which is really the salmon headquarters of Alaska. There are so many thousands of eagles around there. They're like pigeons. One can see. And back up the coast. No point in saying too much here with the big engines on either side. There's the view of the inside passage. Just past the another fjord or inlet down in the back here. And all dotted along our little navigation beacons. But no cellular reception out here. So the best I can do is YouTube. But I won't be giving any virtual tours out of this part of the world. Look at this bit of landslide down on this side here. Looks so much like an avalanche chute, but I'm not sure what caused that. Probably from previous logging. Although it could have been a bit of landslide. Come back down south. Well, my best guess would put me about an hour and a half maybe out of Prince Rupert. This is where the bay starts to open up. I may even be picking up a little bit of cellular connection, but I think I'll just leave the phone off and enjoy this. Really spectacular. A little bit of wind, but I'm actually in a t-shirt now, so it's lovely and warm. Low cloud, but still forecast up in Rupert for about 14 degrees and rainy. And this still is all lumber industry. Have a look at the snow down on the peaks in the distance as well. Yeah, it's about 10:15 now. Tide is still quite low. Everyone on the decks are spotting for bears along the shoreline, but no luck so far. I did see a few more seals, but just never pull out the camera in time to get a quick photo. But it's lovely and calm. That's one thing I have to say for these ferries. Never be afraid of seasickness. They're very, very stable. So, let's see how long before we get docking. Well, I have to be getting closer to Prince Rupert because I can feel raindrops now. I haven't mentioned yet that it is the rainiest city in Canada. It often brags 100 sunny days a year, so you can do a math on rainy days. Look at these little islands. It's fantastic. If I were to travel up that arm way up there, I would get up to 1950s mining community, Kitimat, which has come back to life. And these little islands here, these are kind of the new ones. The rocks all around here are old. And there's been a huge amount of movement in the land through here, through the massive, massive subduction earthquakes. This land was deposited there after the recession of the last ice age. Now, way out in the distance, there are actually some buildings out there. And Prince Rupert's on an island. It's just a small bridge. So it feels fun to come in, just winding around, navigating. I saw whales leaving last night. Still haven't seen any now, but this is one of the best places in the world for whale watching. Just to see that wonderful tenacity of life. See where high tide can get to, and the minute you get above the salt water, the trees are just there, lush and vibrant. But yeah, Prince Rupert has very long winters by Canadian standards, but very, very cold summers. It's kind of nice to be bundled up and cooling off. So not too much longer now. Look back down the valley. everyone's enjoying this journey. Everyone on board is friendly, as you can imagine, and relaxed because, you know, we're on hippie time here. So Prince Rupert is the main grain port up here, originally built by the Grand Trunk Railway, but it looks like an old military lighthouse right there with a big buzzard on it. So I just felt I needed to share that. So we've slowed right down. We're approaching Cane Island. Some glacier peaks up in the distance here. Oh, they're going to make it out.
We'll be arriving in about a half hour at Prince Rupert. Once we get in, we like to time the ship up before anybody goes down to the vehicle. So once we get in, it takes a couple minutes, and then we first invite the vehicle drivers and their passengers down to the car deck. When we arrive, foot passengers, anybody who walked on anywhere, please remain upstairs. We're going to discharge a portion of the vehicle traffic first. So this is all will start to happen in about a half hour. So everybody can take the time to prepare. The car deck is closed until we arrive. Thank you.
So in case you didn't just hear the announcement from the captain, car deck is closed until we're tied up, and it's about a half hour from now. So it's a long, slow process to come in. But there is a big grain terminal out there. So this is always a moving place for farmers from Western Canada. Their grain can go out from here or out from Quebec City on the other side of the country. And also a big coal port over there as well, loading up coal, which I believe principally goes off to Korea. So this ferry only loads from one side. The ones that go from Vancouver to Vancouver Island load from two. So I had to turn the van around on the inside last night. But I'll get turned around and tied up, and then I'll drive up into Prince Rupert itself. Look at that, another big train, CN, that's come through Jasper, of course. This was originally the terminus of the Grand Trunk Railway. And a few raindrops, but it's actually very nice out. So a few more raindrops. And of course here is all Canadian National. Got the big port down in Vancouver, and then the big port up here. And Prince Rupert itself is up around the corner. So we are just north now. Of course, this is very much the north coast of British Columbia. We're just south of Alaska. So next stop up there in the hills would actually be probably both of those hills. The south coast of Alaska. Incidentally, when the Russians first came and took over Alaska and named it a version of that, an Alyeska expansion, an Athabascan name, basically the border was decided between the Russian Empire and the British Empire just from the coast looking up at the top of the mountains. So it was a very, very random sort of definition. And then yesterday while doing a tour, I was going past Quadra Islands near Campbell River on Vancouver Island, and Quadra was sent up by the Spanish to try and beat the Russians to see how far south they were, but they never did actually beat them. So slowly coming in north of Prince Rupert, rainiest city in Canada, and I can feel it, but it's sort of nice after a hot summer and forest fires. So I'll give one more video as we back in, and then I'll have to go down and get ready to drive off the ferry. Well, here we are, just backing in to the terminal, and there's some of the homes of Prince Rupert. Population around 12,000. And there's that old train cars there are for lumber. And then another big inlet. There's a large bear sanctuary. And then we look up towards the panhandle of Alaska. So here we are. Lovely trip. Probably would have been nicer to have a cabin, but saved myself, I don't know, $100 or so sleeping on the floor. Now this particular ship I was on, I think, is going off to Haida Gwaii now. And they do have a larger one that does this run with a big buffet. You know, it's just so lovely coming up north like this. If I were to offer, I guess, a final piece of advice though on this particular route, I think in many ways it's more fun to work your way to Prince Rupert and travel south, because then of course you head down into some sunshine going the other way. and notoriously it doesn't run on time, and that's principally, as far as I understand it, because they have to balance all of the vehicles in the hull, so they have to have everyone checked in, and they work them all through. But calm and friendly and frankly beautiful. So welcome to the far north of British Columbia, a city that had the Grand Trunk Railway. It wasn't till decades later that they connected Prince Rupert to Terrace, BC by road, and that's a story for another day. Thank you for joining me.